what are the things you need to consider when buying land? This is Steve Myers with Urban Cool Homes, and this is a question that we get a lot is, like, hey, I'm interested in buying a lot, or I'm interested in buying some acreage, or, just kind of like, I just want to buy some vacant land to just sit on before I decide if I want to build on it or whatever. We get a lot of different situations that people are interested. So some of the top things you need to consider when buying land is obviously like, what is the price per acre? This is important, and not only is the price per acre important, but also the usage of the acreage. So a lot of times, when you're evaluating acreage cost, you need to be like, is it farmland? Is it zoned for residential? Is it zoned for commercial? Am I actually able to build something on there? Am I able to actually farm on it if that's what your goal is? These are all things to really consider, because really drives the pricing. So sometimes people will be like, well, I don't understand why, this, piece of land over here is, 10,000 per acre, but this other one is like 1,500 per acre. And the 1,500 an acre could be could only really be used for maybe hunting or something, because it's just not able to be really developed unless you spend a lot of money to develop it. But with it being an hour out of town, that's not going to happen for a long while. So, that's something to really consider when buying land, is the price per acre and what the usage of the land is. The next thing to consider is, does the seller have a survey of the land? One of the things is the survey done? And if the survey is done, you want to make sure that the markings for the survey are still out there, so you can clearly walk the boundary line to understand what is your land and what isn't your land. So that's really important to consider. And if there isn't a survey done at the time before you make the offer, it is smart to ask the seller to pay for one or to provide one, or sometimes a buyer can share in the cost of the survey. But usually we would prefer the seller to pay for it, because obviously if it doesn't come out in the buyer's favor on what they were expecting, then the buyer will be stuck with a cost. And surveys can range from $1,000 to over $4,000 or even higher, depending upon all the variables that go into it. But usually you're going to spend at least $1,000 on a survey. Obviously, if we're looking at lots, those are usually plotted out by the developer. So those are more clearly marked. Usually the developer has a plot map, and you can clearly see they will have the markings on the lot, and you can walk with the builder or the developer to clearly understand what is your aspects of your lot. Another thing to consider when buying land is like, what's around you, like this is important. Obviously in real estate, location, but who owns the land around you? What are their long-term goals with that land? Are they going to develop it? Are they going to keep a cornfield, like whatever it is? Because sometimes, you may be like, well, I'm going to stay out here on some acreage. I want to build a nice home, but then there's actually a developer that's already bought the land next to you and is going to be looking at building a subdivision. So these are things you want to consider when buying a land, because that would really, suck if you're planning on getting out away from people just to find out that they're building a neighborhood next to you. One of the other things to consider when buying land is like, do you still have ownership of the mineral rights? So if there is water on the property, you just need to make sure, like, what are the requirements for that water on the property? Also, you want to make sure, like, is this property in a floodplain? Because you honestly don't want to build a house or plan on building a house and not check to make sure that, hey, this part of the land that you're planning on building on is actually in a floodplain. Because obviously that's going to restrict you from building there, or you're going to keep running into issues. The final thing to consider is how you are going to purchase the land, whether it's a cash or a loan. So land isn't like homes. Like, homes are easy to get loans on, but land is not. So a lot of banks will require you, it's got to be like a local bank. They're going to require 25 to 50% down, or they may just not allow you to buy the land with a loan at all. So you really need to check in with your financing company to see like what their requirements are for buying land. Now sometimes obviously this could be a little different, like if you are going to buy some farmland that has crops already growing on it, then and it maybe has a lease or something for the crops, like that then becomes more of a business type of loan. So that's something that you could explore with a bank as well. There's definitely options out there for it. You don't necessarily always have to buy cash, but you just really want to make sure, because you will more than likely be required to put a heavy cash position on it, whether it's 25 or 50%. So those are some of the things to consider when buying land. So if you have any questions, just let us know.